Many millionaires were minted and lives changed in the decade-long bull run that ended in 2021, but most people missed this opportunity. Luckily though, a bull run of biblical proportions is starting soon. But for a little context, we need to know the drivers of the last bull market to understand the next. And to do that, we need to go back to the global financial crisis, where foreclosures hit 1 in every 45 in the US, banks were bailed out, and taxpayers across the globe paid for the mistakes of reckless, arrogant bankers. It set a precedent, and during the 2010s, interest rates hit record lows. This put borrowing on turbo mode and accelerated investments and asset prices, and it meant that the number of millionaires in the UK nearly doubled to 2,849 from 2012 to 2021. Now the big reason for this is that governments thought they'd found the cure to recessions, and by pumping money into the system, we had a beautiful decade of economic growth, even if it was artificial, and rates dropped almost to zero during the COVID collapse. But like everything, the bill always comes due. Gone are the crazy days of 2021 where planes flew banners to buy Bitcoin, and since then we've had war in Europe, the cost of living crisis, and military action in the Middle East. And all this means that those who are left standing will reap the rewards, but you need to know the right sectors and markets to be in. You've probably heard a lot about AI in the news, about how it's going to steal our jobs or make us rich or kill us all off. But the reality is that AI is going to boost productivity to another level. Yes, it is going to kill a lot of jobs and take a wrecking ball to some industries. And yes, that does mean some people will go through some hardship and struggle to get new jobs. But if the Luddites had their way, then we'd be stuck without power looms, and a lot of the industrial revolution would never even have happened. And I think we can all agree that we're much better off now than the early 1800s. All of these jobs didn't exist 15 years ago, aside from app designers, as the iOS App Store launched in 2008. So whilst jobs do disappear, new ones take their place and progress continues.
You can't stop progress because it's a moldy old bone.
Now, Elon Musk thinks there'll come a time when no job is needed, and you know, he might be right. But before we get too excited about that, he also said we'd have full self-driving cars from Tesla in 2014. 10 years later, we don't. He also said that there'll be 2.1 million Tesla robo-taxis on the road by 2020, and owners would rent out their cars for money, and that's still a distant dream, even now. And look, I don't want to bash people for aiming big, because if you don't aim big, you won't get there, and Elon Musk is certainly more successful and far more richer just by a little bit than I am. But whilst AI can do some pretty cool things, I think we are a long way from anyone having to ever work again. And people said that about the Industrial Revolution, people said that about the internet, and although we're working less in general than we did in the 1800s, the gap between productivity and income has only increased, meaning things like getting a mortgage on a single income is now much harder than it was several decades ago. But AI will 100% boost productivity, because jobs that previously took a lot of time, such as admin work or anything that can be automated, can now be done by AI in seconds, freeing up labour hours for other jobs as well as saving money. So corporate earnings will rise, and that is going to be the big driver of the next bull market. Because as corporate profits rise, that means more dividends to shareholders or rise in valuations, which power the major stock market indices. And so AI is going to be a huge contributor, just like the internet was in the 2010s. But that's not the whole story, because whilst AI is going to help, there are other factors in play too, such as the rise of the middle classes in emerging economies. For example, in India, the middle classes are expected to grow to 715 million in 2030 from 432 million in 2020. So that's nearly an extra 300 million people, or the size of roughly the US, now able to indulge in discretionary spending because they're secure enough economically. And if you've ever been to Bicester Village, you'll have seen the buses of Chinese tourists who are there to load up on discounted luxury goods while they're on business or holiday. This discretionary spending, as people rise up into the middle class, is going to fuel spending on all sorts of sectors, from leisure and tourism, hospitality, electronic goods and housewares. And this spending is going to create jobs for new businesses to cater to that wealth that's now being unlocked. Couple that with the fact that employees are starting to see real wage growth compared to inflation again here in the UK, and that means consumer discretionary spending is once again going to start growing. Back in early 2022, I said that rising interest rates would negatively impact stocks because bonds become more attractive, but also because companies would need to fight for a shrinking consumer discretionary spending pot. And so I went short on several stocks here, but as we see that pot start to stabilize and consumer confidence grow, this is going to stop the rot in a lot of the hospitality and consumer sectors. It's no surprise that retailers have been the most consistently shorted stocks in this period, with companies like ASOS and Boohoo down more than 90% from their 2021 highs. And whilst the business environment for these businesses has changed, other companies will pop up and flourish and take their place. These new companies will develop new technologies that are going to increase our quality of life and solve problems such as electric vehicles, advancements in healthcare and other technologies, and we're going to need the infrastructure to support that. Now this is where industrials and commodities are going to step in. For example, with electric vehicles, Goldman Sachs thinks EVs will be half of global car sales by 2035. And even if they are wrong, that's a lot of cars, but it's also a lot of batteries. And those batteries contain a lot of critical metals that just aren't around in huge supply at the moment. For example, take lithium, which is naturally a key element in lithium-ion batteries. S&P Global predicts that the market for this metal will enter deficit by as early as 2024, with a gap reaching 605,000 tons of lithium carbonate by 2030. And it's the same in copper. We need this not just for cars, but also buildings with the rapid global population growth and urbanization. S&P Global sees demand doubling to 50 million megatons, which is a lot of tons, in 2035, with a shortfall of 10 million in supply as it stands. The list goes on, and the facts are we just don't have enough of this supply, so getting it out of the ground is going to provide a lot of jobs and be the building blocks, sometimes literally, of the next bull market. Thanks for watching. YouTube suggests that you might like these videos, so maybe I'll see you in a few seconds.